You picked bear. Why is that?
Because in some cases, the bear can be safer than the man.
And in what scenario will a bear ever be safer than a man? And a man you have a chance to fight against. A bear you do not.
A man could also, more likely than not, would. Well, okay. Go ahead. Make your argument why.
I just feel like I don't fuck with the bear. Oh, if I don't mess with the bear, and the bear doesn't mess with me, we're good. But men, you don't know. I mean, sometimes I talk to guys, and just me being nice to them, they think I'm trying to move to the next base, and I'm like, bro, I'm just being nice to you. Like, I'm so good.
Okay, and in those situations where maybe the guy was not reading the signals correctly, did he end up murdering you?
Well, no.
Oh, okay. But you felt uncomfortable.
You could say almost. You never know.
Almost.
Yeah.
Really? So all those times where the guy misread the signals, you were on the verge of being murdered? But you just
Most
luckily...
certainly, dude.
You never know.
I bet he had like a butter knife in his back pocket waiting for the moment.
Yeah, butter knife. That would be a good way to...
Some weird kinks out
Probably
there.
a spoon.
I think the only fair argument there, sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I think the only fair argument is like people in general, men or women, can be more like calculated, right? And manipulative, whereas like an animal's kind of just going to react, whereas like a person could possibly act like they don't have bad intent and then actually have bad intent. I think that's the only argument I would say for choosing the bear.
Yeah.
Does that make
I
sense?
don't know. I've been
It's
actually...
like an animal's
Yeah.
more predictable.
Like I'm going to assume that a bear might do something aggressive so I can be ready for it. But like a man could like pretend that they have good intent and then kind of get you to let your guard down and then not. But I mean, the men that I'm running into on the trail, I'm a big trail runner. I have never knock on something, and I'm in some really remote places, run into a man who is trying to hurt me in the wilderness ever.
Well, just here in LA, there was homeless guys randomly attacking women running on the beach.
Oh, that's like
that's
in
in
New
the
York.
city, though.
That's in like New
Okay,
York where
but-
they're like
so-
punching women.
Exactly.
It's different.
Oh yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I'm not trying to make the argument here that there aren't bad men.
Can we change the animal? Could it be like an elephant?
Okay.
A hippo, but
Hippos are terrifying.
But you're like super outdoorsy, right? Like,
Very.
do you do van life?
I lived in a van for 2 years.
Okay, and you're running. You do trail running. So, I mean, how many times a week would you be out running in the wilderness alone? I guess.
I mean, when I'm in peak training, I'm running up at like 12,500 feet for like 40, 50 miles a week. So I'm spending hours and hours. I'm talking like no cell service, completely by myself. And I do carry something.
Yeah.
I also have a really strong dog. So he's a very good deterrent. But I mean, still, if someone has a gun or a knife, and had really
Right.
bad intent,
So,
that's not going to do much.
Like, how many individual times would you say you've like been out in the wilderness? Over 1,000 times?
Easily. I've been trail running for like 7-8 years.
Like where you're alone, and how many times would you say you've like maybe crossed an individual man when you're out there?
Maybe like 15, 20, just because where I run is so remote.
It's super remote, so it's
Yeah.
rare for you to even encounter anybody.
Very rare,
Okay.
but I've never felt unsafe. I'm always like
Right.
aware, and kind
Yeah.
of wary, but I've never felt threatened or had anything
Yeah.
happen.
And
So,
of the times you did encounter men, is it just you literally pass them and it's like a little nod or hi and that's it? You just walk past each other?
yes, I think maybe I've just been lucky. I do think like there's an element of luck here. I know that bad things can happen to people and sometimes they're not asking for it, but I feel like the men that I've passed were kind of aware of the circumstances, of the fact that we were alone, and were aware of the fact that they are a man and we were in the middle of nowhere. And maybe I've just been lucky, but I felt that they were very respectful of that. So
Their round meatball donated $200. Has anyone on this panel ever run into a bear before? How safe did you feel?
I have in Alaska.
Same.
But I was in a car.
There was no harm
You're in a car?
Yeah.
in a car.
Car?
and I've run into probably about, I would say, 5 to 6 black bears since I've lived in Colorado, like 10 feet away, and they
I
all
see.
just leave you
Go
be.
about their day, yeah, same. I've run into about 5 or 6, and one time, not counting the cubs, it was a mom with 2 cubs, and yeah, it was about like 10, 15 feet away, and I was excited. I didn't feel any fear, and I was just like, oh, that's so cute. And
I was terrified.
Really?
You're braver than
I
I
sat
am.
in my
I was
car for
scared.
30 minutes last night because there was a raccoon outside. I was so scared to get in my
Raccoons
house.
are mean. That was smart.
actually
Yeah.
I
got
see
bit
from
by a barracuda, and it was like over 100 barracuda. They're about that big. And one of them bit me, and I started bleeding, and I just held my finger and like swam to shore. But my heart rate did not even skip a beat. I don't know. I have like survival instincts like a motherfucker, I guess.
Or you're a beautiful psychopath.
Definitely not a psychopath. I'm very emotional. But hey, we both lived in vans before. Woo! Yes,
Van
ma'am.
life.
Wow, commonality. Yes,
I mean, it's not that
queen.
common.
I'm
I
more
watched-
boring than you.
I
wait,
watched-
so okay.
woman.
Hold on, just going back to you since you said bear, and you were gonna say bear. I'm gonna just say your answer was bear.
My
because-
answer was bear. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So why? Why bear?
Because I'm an irrational human being.
Oh, that's a good.
boy.
That's actually probably the best answer I've heard on that. You at least you're self-aware of that it's an irrational
Fear.
answer. And so, really quick, going back to you. So you, like, how many times per week would you go out into the wilderness? Like, 5 days a week?
It depends on the time of the year, obviously. But in the summer, I'd say at least 2-3 times a week. I'm up pretty high.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. So, okay, a couple questions for you on this bear thing. So, you think you'd rather be with a bear than the man. So, what do you think the chances are if we select a random man from the United States population? What do you think the chances are that if placed in this scenario that a man would opt to victimize you in some way?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, give us a percentage. 20%, 30%, 40, 50%?
Well, it depends on what victimizing means to you.
Anywhere from, say, touching you inappropriately to all the way to murder.
I would say probably like 40%.
40%. And is that 40% of men would touch you inappropriately? Do you have a lower percentage for how many would murder you, or still 40%?
I just think it's like 40% for more like men touching inappropriately. Because just like my
Okay.
experience in like school with dudes, like going through puberty, like there was this one kid that literally would like walk behind all the girls with big butts and just like smack them and run away.
Yeah, that's wrong.
and,
So this was in, how old were you?
In middle school.
Yikes. Okay, well, that's wrong of him to do, 100%. But are you kind of arguing that 40% of the boys that you went to school with touched you or other women inappropriately?
Okay, maybe like 20%.
Okay, so just to be
20%.
clear, if there were 1,000, say there were 1,000 boys, that would be 400 of the boys, or 200 of the boys in the case of 20%. 200 of the boys in the school were touching the women inappropriately.
They would shut the school down.
Is that your recollection of your middle school
I
experience?
just feel like dudes, before they have any common sense, just do stupid stuff. And then women are like, what do I do about this? Like, what do I do? Some women don't even say anything. They get touched inappropriately, and they were never even taught that they were touched inappropriately. So they're just like, but I feel like if we did a statistic and women had to like, if we had like a poll, like how many women were touched inappropriately in their time and didn't say anything, I feel like it would be a higher number than people would expect.
I think there is a
That's
poll.
what the
think
whole
that's
Me
fair.
Too
That's
movement was
100%
about.
true.
That's what the whole Me Too movement was about, is that every woman has been through something like that.
Yeah, so I'd have to say like 40%. I feel like 50 is too many, but I definitely feel like 40%.
I know.
Like men don't like. I feel like
So I feel like it's actually a smaller percentage of men, but it's the percentage of men, they're doing it more. So so the percentage of men is probably like maybe 5-10%. But that percentage of men is doing so much SA or enough SA to where it's affecting multiple women.
What constitutes SA to
Right.
you?
For me, anytime that a man inappropriately touches me or holds me against my will.
And I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm
No, that's
genuinely
fine.
curious. So, like, if a man were to come up and like put his hand on your shoulder, you're not saying that would be SA.
I think it would be a violation of my privacy, but it would not be sexual assault.
So can we try to narrow in here on a number in terms of of the men, random man, what percentage of men do you think would opt to victimize you in some way in this scenario?
I feel like they don't opt. I just feel like sometimes they do it and they don't know that they're doing it. Like,
Okay, fine. They're
so maybe
doing
like
it
20%.
whether they're doing it
maybe
unconsciously
I
or
would say 20%.
consciously.
I think that's like a really good percentage.
20%.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say that there's 160 million men in the United States. 20% of that would be, oh, my math here is going to be fucked.
Might not be any better.
30 something million? Let's just say around 30. So you think 30 million men in the United States in this situation would choose to victimize you in some way?
Maybe women in general, not just me.
Or, well,
You're the one on the hike.
that
But
would that
I'm the one-
do you
oh,
think
on a
30
hike.
do you think 30 million men in the United States throughout the course of their life will victimize a woman in some way?
Probably.
30 million men?
I mean, America's pretty good with the rules and things, and I feel like we have more morals than other countries. But I
What's
feel like
the
if we
current
go into
prison
other
population?
countries,
Hold on.
the numbers
Prison
might get higher.
Let's see. So the current prison population, let's see, is over 1 million. It's 1.2 million.
In the United
And this
States?
this includes, huh?
In the United States?
Yeah, 1.2 million. That's the current prison population in the United States, and this is going to include financial crimes. It's going to include drug-related crimes, men who are violent towards other men. So obviously, you know, there are people who commit crimes, get away with it, they don't get in trouble, etc. There are men who are released. But I mean, don't you think, given this number I've provided, that it's probably unlikely that 30 million million men in the United States would choose to victimize you?
They probably have at some point in their lifetime.
You think 30 million men would
At some point.
at some
and
point?
you're making a very
No.
like broad definition of SA too, so that's like, what about like?
No. Well, I'm including like murder
It's probably 5%.
in this.
Okay, but this is a logical fallacy
that's a
because
lot.
just because there's that many millions of people in prison right now, that's not like a broad overview of people who have gotten out of prison, haven't gone to prison yet.
Yeah, I
and then
mentioned
you,
that.
Right.
Yeah,
so then
people
you do
can-
have to account for that. And you
Okay,
have
let's
to
just
factor
double
Do
it.
the math
Fine,
and
we'll
see
double
how
it.
many people are in prison for
Rape or
sexual
Guys,
assault.
And he
just
did
say
mention the ones
SA.
that haven't been reported, so
Or,
maybe
sorry.
add a little bit more for that because that's very common.
What?
Women who don't report the SA.
Oh, yeah.
So it's
I think
really hard to
40% 's
look at
valid.
statistics in this way when it's such a nuanced.
I think if you looked at the whole entire world.
Well, how about why don't you tell
40%?
us what percentage of men you think would choose to victimize somebody in these circumstances?
Okay, who I think would actively do it.
What percentage?
I don't think it's 40%. I mean, I can't really say. I mean, I've encountered things like that myself, but I also know a lot of really good men, and the other guys are like outliers. I don't know, maybe 20%.
Still a lot of men. 20%. Again, that's what, 30 million or something.
At least once in their whole lifetime with this whole broad, very vague.
No, most men are
It's probably
throughout their
5 to
whole
10.
lifetime are never going to commit a violent crime.
I think it is a smaller percentage of
Very
men
small
doing a
percentage.
lot of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
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 Because
I
like
mean-
20, that's a lot. That's a lot.
You would think that the hobos in the woods that I like camp next to would be in the like
Mm-hmm.
demographic that's higher percentage to do something like that. I don't know if I would phrase that right, but
No.
you would think that they would be in that higher percentage, and yet no one bothered me. I did have a bum like throw his shit bucket at me once. but
I was a correctional
think-
officer, and we see stuff like that all the time.
I think another important thing
Wait,
to
you're a
note.
what?
I was a correctional officer
you-
at one point.
Okay. What? Go ahead.
Another important thing to note, I guess, is not necessarily how many men are actually doing it, but how many men, given the circumstances, would do it. And that is probably higher than what's actually happening.
Do you mean
Because
if there were no consequences?
if there were no consequences for it,
40.
There was actually an
So
experiment.
no, you think no consequences they would?
yes, that's.
I can say I
that's
think it's
the
beautiful
history
that
of-
you don't think that. I think you're projecting a very good internal world
That's the history of
that you don't think that.
What about? I mean, the
People have been
So are you saying
pillaged.
like no criminal consequences?
Yeah, no criminal consequences.
Yeah. What about the consequences of your mind to
Or-
do that?
Well, that too, but I think that's okay. Then let's roll out culture and shaming, because there's culture and shaming associated with SA. So if you didn't have that present, I mean, this is kind of like you're gonna have a lot more, because I feel like it's a natural inclination for men to want to dominate women and
Wait, hold
be
on.
aggressive.
You think it's a natural inclination for men to want to dominate?
women?
Maybe not
But
dominate.
but the
like,
context of the conversation here is SA. So when you say dominate, you mean it's in men's nature to want to SA women?
If you're considering the definition of SA to be like any form of inappropriate gesture or touching, then yes, I feel like a lot of men would do that.
if you're going by
give
thought,
give me a percentage.
like,
What percentage of men would do it?
15.
15? Okay. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I just, well, I mean, what we do for work, like the amount of men that make comments that are just like insane. And it's like, if it was a percentage by like, if there was no like liability for doing that, I feel like it would easily be 40%. Like men would just be
What do you mean the
walking around.
men that make comments? What do you mean? Okay. Men send you messages like what? Nice titties. I want to fuck you.
People say crazy things. Like
You're a sex
crazy.
worker.
Exactly.
Do you
I mean,
think-
Are you
that's,
Yeah.
like,
that's the world that you decided to be
Oh,
involved
no,
in.
I know. But it's just like.
It's
from
probably-
And that's
knowing
different than
that.
actually like doing something
That's not
physically
SA,
to you, right?
right.
Like
It's
actually
probably-
showing
Well, I
that
think she's
person.
factoring into
Yeah,
the
it's not-
hypothetical
it's not
of no
SA for
consequences.
guys.
Yeah, the
I think
hypothetical.
And if they
I
were
don't
there.
think men should be.
Consequences,
Yeah.
I don't think men should be sending you like sexually inappropriate messages, but that's not SA. For a guy to be like,
no.
"Oh, nice titties, I want to."
Could you ever?
No,
could
she's
you
just
ever
saying
commit
based on those
SA
comments,
via,
that's
like,
why her view is that it would be so many. 'Cause
Like,
she
if
gets
it was
so many
legal?
comments like that.
If what was legal?
If it was legal for men to just do whatever to women, I mean, in other countries, I mean, the stuff that happens to women, that, I mean, if we did a percentage of the entire planet in the countries that like women don't have rights,
Well, I don't know about the like. I'm not sure what country in specific you're talking about, but
probably
perhaps there are
Saudi
some countries
Arabia?
where this is a more common occurrence, but I can't really speak to that.
yeah.
So
Shoot, I can't remember what I was gonna say.
I got I got a question. So for those of you who say bear, if we go to any zoo in the world and you go to a zoo that has a bear enclosure, now take note that there will be men and women outside the enclosure. Why are none of the women jumping into the enclosure to escape from the men?
Cultural shaming.
Why haven't we ever heard of that happening? Cultural shaming, that's the reason?
Because why would a man like SA someone in a public space like a zoo?
Let's, I don't know, maybe it's late
It's
late
probably
at
happening.
night. There's nobody around, right? Opportunity.
If a man was trying to SA me in a public space, I wouldn't jump into the enclosure with the bear unless I felt like the bear would avenge me.
Yes.
The bear would offend you. Okay.